Canada's human rights record has drawn steady criticism from the United Nations. 3 UN reviews this year have found a range of ongoing and very serious human rights violations in the country. They include abusing the rights of Indigenous people. Apart from that, the government's handling of student protests in Quebec has also been criticised. This report now takes a look at the state of human rights in Canada.
Amnesty International's 2013 Human Rights Agenda for Canada is focusing on the country's failure to fix the problems already mentioned by the UN rights experts and bodies. The UN reviews studied racial discrimination, the prevention of torture and the rights of children. Amnesty's 2013 agenda is focusing on 8 main areas, including the rights of Indigenous people, women's rights and the rights of refugees and migrants. Aboriginals, who are also known as the First Nations, continue to face a grave human rights crisis across Canada, from passing laws that take away their ancestral lands from them to the forced removal of their children. The report has found that the First Nation children don't have equal access to essential government services compared with other people in the country. Moreover, Ottawa has been stealing the Indigenous children from the parents by force to put them in childcare centres. The First Nations say the government has stepped up this campaign over the past years and more children are now being separated from their parents.
Ever since they took our children this time, it was the same thing. INSET team came, over 32 officers. There was they took the children at gunpoint, treated us like terrorists.
In yet another move that has ruffled the Aboriginals' feathers, Canada's federal government has passed a bill through Parliament that makes changes to the land use and resource policies. The bill, named C-45, has sparked outrage among the First Nations, triggering protests and hunger strikes. This woman, Teresa Spencer, is the chief of the Ottawa Pequot First Nation. She's stopped eating for over a week now in protest at the latest budget bill. Amnesty's report also mentions that the fundamental right to water within the First Nation communities are forgotten across the country. Ottawa's push for a massive pipeline connecting the Alberta oil sands to the British Columbia coast that go through roughly 1,000 rivers and streams in the traditional territories of Indigenous people in the area illustrates the federal government's ignorance for the First Nations land rights. Amnesty's scathing report shows that the rate of physical and sexual abuse against women has remained unchanged for several decades. It's accused Ottawa of moving backwards, collecting less and less information about violence against women and girls, especially among the Indigenous people. Refugees and migrants are also falling victim to unequal access to justice and are facing arbitrary detention across Canada. The report says that the government treats refugees differently according to the country of origin. Month-long student protests in the French-speaking province of Quebec and the subsequent police crackdown have also attracted the rights group's attention. Heavy-handed policing tactics and mass arrests of students who protested against university tuition fee hikes are condemned and criticized by Amnesty International. In the end, the international rights group has called on the government of Canada to launch a process of law reform to ensure that the people's basic rights are respected.
To discuss this more, I'm joined by Alfred Webre, international lawyer from Vancouver. Welcome to the programme. So, Mr. Webre, why is it that Canada accuses other countries, namely Iran, of human rights violations, but we see the country itself suffers from serious human rights problems at home?
Yes, well, you see, Canada now has come under a conservative government under Prime Minister Stephen Harper. And because of certain idiosyncrasies under the Canadian Constitution, the Canadian Prime Minister is virtually a dictator. And Prime Minister Stephen Harper is an out-and-out Zionist. And that is why Canada has become a client state of Israel, and was one of the only Western powers to break diplomatic relations with Israel. So Canada, under the Zionist Stephen Harper, is now following the same repressive policies within Canada that Israel follows within its own territories against the Palestinian people. That is my analysis. For example, just this week here in Vancouver, there was issued the inquiry by Attorney General Wally Opal of the Vancouver police handling of the Aboriginal missing women who were missing over 20 years. And these are a large number of women that were taken by a serial killer, Robert Picton, from the Lower East Side of Vancouver. And what the evidence showed is that since 1992, they had Robert Picton identified as the person who would take Aboriginal women out to his pig farm and kill them, slaughter them like pigs, and then put them through the meat grinding facility out there, and the police knew about it since then. And then we have, and I know about this as a journalist here, through Reverend Kevin Annett and a number of other witnesses, we have evidence, independent evidence, that, and this was given when a police informer was in Robert Picton's cell disguised as a fellow inmate, that at the Picton farm, the Vancouver police, along with the Hells Angels, were bringing prominent politicians there to have satanic rituals with the Aboriginal women and then killing them on film for snuff films. This is sort of the satanic rituals that have taken over Vancouver.
Right.
And to make it even worse, and this comes from the International Tribunal into Crimes of Church and State, in 1964, in Kamloops, British...
Mr. Weber, the question is then, as a person who's been in the legal business for years, I presume, how much legal action has been taken to address such issues?
Absolutely none. This is being taken up by citizens' tribunals here, such as the International Tribunal into Crimes of Church and State. And we have witnesses that the head of state of Canada in 1964, Queen Elizabeth Windsor, with her consort, came and took 10 Aboriginal children from the Aboriginal school in Kamloops, BC, and they were never seen again in their life. And we have Michael Coombs as a witness there. And that is coming now to the International Tribunal into Crimes of Church and State, and that is on video. This is the head of state of Canada. And so that is why Canada is doing it, because it is the ultimate Zionist state under the British Crown and under Israel.
Right. Well, on that note, we'll have to leave it there. Many thanks to Alfred Webre, international lawyer from Vancouver. Thanks for your thoughts there, sir.